Hello, everyone. It's Paul O'Hagan here. Thanks very much again for attending our webinar today. Today, we're going to talk to you about postgraduate research in the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Science. And as you can see, I am joined by Professor David Grieve. David is the Director of Postgraduate Research and the Director of Internationalisation in the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Science. So he's going to chat to us in a bit as well. And if I could just move my mouse, there we go. So as I said, my name's Paula O'Hagan, and I'm the Business Development Manager in the Faculty of Medicine, Health and Life Sciences. It's really nice to welcome you all today. And I understand that we have, I suppose we've got a mixture of students from across the world with us today from our registrations, but we are aware that we do have some students from Northern Ireland, from the UK, from the Republic of Ireland as well. So I want to welcome everyone, and we'll try and take that into consideration as we go through the presentation. So this is what our webinar is going to look like today. The first part of the presentation I will lead. I'll talk to you a little bit about life at Queen's and life in Belfast in general. I'll also talk to you about kind of starting your PhD journey and what this might look like for you. And if you haven't already applied, I'll take you through the steps as well in how to make an application, how to identify a supervisor, and all of that information. Following this, you will hear from Professor David. And David will chat to you a bit more specifically about studying in the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Science. He'll chat to you about writing a research proposal. I suppose he'll chat to you things around research in the UK, research in the school, and what you might encounter in your first year of PhD study. After that, we'll have a short break for 15 minutes, and that will be kind of 1 hour from now. And then we'll come back and answer any questions that you might have. I'm seeing a couple of messages here that there's a couple of people that can't hear me. If you just make sure that your microphone's on, our audio is on, so I know that some people can hear. So hopefully, if you've figured it out to switch on your audio on your laptop or your computer or your phone, you should be able to hear me by now. But I'll continue on for those who can hear me. So life at Queen's University Belfast. Great. Sorry, I'm just seeing messages that people can hear now. So apologies to anyone who is already at Queen's, maybe perhaps studying a postgraduate taught degree, but we're quickly going to chat a little bit specifically to those people who are international today and who might not know what it's like to study at Queen's, might not know very much about Belfast. Northern Ireland was voted the happiest place to live in the UK. But one of the most appealing things for our students is that we have a really low cost of living, and that's compared to the other kind of major UK cities, London, Manchester, Edinburgh. Northern Ireland, in terms of rent and what you would spend on food and travel here, would be the cost of living would be a lot lower. Within the UK, you can fly to all major UK cities from Belfast within in less than an hour, I suppose. And we have really good transport networks here, and we have 2 airports. So there's lots of flights, and we encourage our students, if they do arrive in Belfast, to travel around the UK and other parts of Europe while they're studying here as well. And a little bit about Belfast. Belfast is a great, vibrant city, great for our students. It's small, but it has everything you'll need for studying and kind of going out and socialising. It's got all the kind of key benefits that you would expect. If anyone hasn't been to Belfast, it has recently been voted the best UK city. And as well, kind of if you look outside the city, we have kind of some really stunning landscapes, things like the Antrim Coast or the Giant's Causeway, are 2 that come to mind. And I've just shared a couple of photos here for you. To give you a little bit of background on Queen's University Belfast, it's the 9th oldest university in the UK, and the 25th. We're ranked 25th in the world for international outlook. And that's based on things like our international student population, the work we do in terms of research internationally. We are home to 2,300 international students from 82 countries. So we're a very diverse university, and we take pride in our diversity. And it really adds to your experience here. So you won't just encounter students from Northern Ireland or from your home country. You really will get a good diverse mix of being able to interact with not only students, but a lot of international academics as well. Queen's is a member of the Russell Group, one of the top research-intensive universities alongside Cambridge, Oxford and Imperial College London. And we're the only university in Northern Ireland who is a member of the prestigious Russell Group as well. If you do decide to begin your journey of study at Queen's, life at Queen's University Belfast is great, especially for our postgraduate students. Accommodation is guaranteed to all international students. We have kind of three main areas for accommodation within the city centre, all about 15-20-minute walk from the main campus. And rooms are available for accommodation from as low as £71 per week. But there's obviously a range in this, and it ranges right up to £160 per week. You can choose to share rooms, you can choose to have a room in your own, you can choose to share a house. So there's lots of options around accommodation. And if you are interested in Queen's accommodation, I would encourage you to check out the main Queen's website to find out a little bit more about this. As I mentioned before, we have really low cost of living in Belfast. And we would estimate around the kind of £10,000, £9,000 to £10,000 mark per year that you would need to allocate towards your living expenses, and that would include your accommodation and all of your other kind of travel and food expenses that you may incur while you're here. The fees for the course are stated below, but we'll come back to the fees for our students at the end. So starting your journey to PhD. So what are your options? I suppose the main thing for you to understand is that you do have a few options when it comes to PhD study. PhD, or a doctorate of philosophy, is 3 years, and it's the highest level of a degree that the student can achieve. If, for example, that you wanted to continue postgraduate research study for 2 years, you would qualify with what's called an MPhil, or a Master's of Philosophy. So that's a 2-year degree, but it's an advanced postgraduate degree. Most of our students will complete the full PhD, which is the 3-year PhD, but there are other options for 2 years, and there's also an option for 1-year study as well. Now, you won't become a doctor, you won't have a doctorate at that point, following on from the 1 year or 2 year. But you may have a diploma or a master's depending on when you drop out. So I suppose for us, you also need to consider the kind of type of PhD study that you're going to do. Independently, you would be conducting original and significant research, especially when later on when David will chat to you about research in the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Science. All of our PhDs require a thesis, and these are usually around 80,000 to 100,000 words. And you're assessed at the end of the PhD on the quality and on the originality of what you present through your research. But David's going to chat to you a little bit more about research in the coming slides. So how do you apply for your research? I understand that some of you may have already made the application, which is great. But for those of you who haven't and who are kind of still considering what you want to do, these are kind of the steps that we would advise that you take in order to start your journey into PGR study. So what you firstly need to do is identify your research area. If you're interested in research areas in the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Science, which we'll touch on the different research areas later, you should go onto our website and identify which of these areas that you're most interested in. Now, this could be in relation to your current job, it could be in relation to what you've studied as a master's or at an undergraduate level, or it might just be an area of something that you're really interested in doing. But once you have identified that research area, that leads you on to the supervisors who work within that research area. And within that, you will see a range of supervisors. You will see what each of them work on. You will see some of their previous students. You will see some of the papers that they've published. So it's important. It's important for you to, first of all, identify the area of research, and secondly, within that area of research, which of the PhD supervisors in that area that you would like to work with. And it's important then you get in touch with them and you speak to them before you make a formal application. The reason we encourage this kind of communication before you make the application is so that you can get a chance to understand a bit more about what they're working on, and they can get more of a chance to understand what you're working on. They might ask you for a research proposal at that point. And once you've spoken with an academic, and you can work with them to develop your research proposal. David's going to chat a little bit more about this in the coming slides as well. Finally, once you've kind of identified a supervisor, a research area, and you've completed your research proposal, it's time to apply. And obviously we accept applications online on our website, and the link is there to apply. But at the end of the presentation, I'm going to come back to you on this and talk about some next steps. If you're unsure where to find the research areas or which supervisor that you should contact, we can help you with that, and we can direct you and guide you. If you kind of want to talk to us about your area, we will help you to find the appropriate supervisor and the appropriate research area. So David's going to come back on and he's going to take over from here, but I'll be back after a while to chat to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Paula. So everyone can hear me, hopefully. So as Paula has said, I am David Grieve. I'm the Director of Postgraduate Research and Internationalisation within the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Sciences. And I'm going to really sort of build on some of the introduction there that Paula's given you about our school and about, what it's like to do a PhD within the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Sciences. So I'm just going to start off by going through a few slides, giving you a little advice about how to write a research proposal. So I appreciate that we have a few people here from the UK. A lot of UK students will tend to apply for an advertised research project, but for our international students, a lot of those will tend to come to us with a proposal of their own. So I'm going to really sort of take you through what we would like to see as a research proposal. So it's important that this isn't too long. Okay, so in the Faculty of Medicine, Health and Life Sciences, what we really want is we want a short, kind of succinct proposal which summarizes kind of these four key aspects, which are shown on this slide here. So the most important thing is that you have a research question. So what is your primary research question? And you can see the link that we've got below there, that links to our Find a PhD Supervisor page, which Paul has already highlighted too. And it's important that your primary research question both links to the research that you're specifically interested in, but is also linked to a particular supervisor or particular supervisors within the school. So I think it's really important that you think of these two important aspects in parallel. You could also think about if you've got any other research interests, and I'll come back to that later on, so you can think more broadly maybe how your research fits in to other areas of research within the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Sciences. So I've got a slide on each of these kind of key aspects here. So firstly, when you're thinking about your research question, you think about what's your primary research question. Think about, what you're trying to achieve, what would you like to achieve, what's the hypothesis of research, what's your primary sort of aim, do you have any sort of secondary or tertiary aims that might fit with that first aim of your research, and what is the context of this research? So, why is it important? So give us a little bit of background in terms of what's known, maybe a little bit about this area, what's unknown, give a little bit kind of a brief literature review, and maybe include, if you have any of your own previous work. I know a lot of students will not have done any research before, but if you have done any research before and this builds on your previous research, or it links to specific interest that you and your university has already, highlight that to us. And I've got that link again to you there, and we'll send you that later on anyway, but that's really just to this Find a PhD Supervisor page where all of our academic supervisors in the school. I think we've got over 100 at the moment. Each have their own profile page, and you can look at those and really see how your ideas link in with what they and we do. So next, I think it's really important to tell us why you want to work in a particular research area. You know, why are you interested in this particular research area? It kind of builds on a bit of the background you've given us in the previous slide. It's really important to tell us what motivates you for doing a PhD. I know that some students will be coming from universities where they're required to go and do a PhD, you know, to basically progress their academic career, and that's fine. But I think as motivation itself, it's nice to have, you know, you really need to have some interest as well, and also have thought about really, you know, how doing a PhD in this particular area is going to kind of, you know, advance your career going forward. From a research perspective, why is this a particularly important area of academic study? What are the knowns in the particular area? What are the unknowns? What are the unmet needs? And it's really important that our research has impact. You know, so what impact is your research going to have on society? So, you know, how may it advance basic understanding? It may lead to development of new therapeutic approaches. And I think for international students particularly, you know, what might be the specific benefit of the research that you do within the UK and within Queen's University Belfast to your home country? Then a little bit about how you might want to go about doing this research. So kind of what sort of methods might you use, you know, broadly, and quantitative methods, qualitative methods, mixed methods research. What specific kind of methods do you think you might want to use? Outline how you might go around doing this research. Give a very brief, I suppose, experimental plan. I think it's very helpful as well to think about how this might link to your research thesis at the end. And just finally, I think it's important as well to think about other areas. So, you know, some people come to us, they have lots of different interests in lots of different areas. Some people have interests in a very, very specific area. But, you know, you can tell us that. You can maybe highlight one or two areas you might be interested in, and possibly even think about linking these areas together. So, for example, I'm a cardiovascular physiologist, and we would work with academic colleagues within the School of Pharmacy. So that's why I've included those two links for you there. So it gives you really ideas in terms of the kind of research which is done both across the faculty, in the other 3 schools in our school, and also within the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Sciences. Okay, and there's that link for you again. So I think it's, you know, it's really important to and it sounds like quite a lot that I've just gone through there, but the important thing is that, you know, you need to really try and summarize this within, you know, a sort of a short amount of space. So within 1,000 words. We don't really want a 10-page research proposal. The idea of this is really just for us to have some idea of the kind of area of research you want to do, you know, why you want to do that particular area of research, and maybe how it links with the research that we do within the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Sciences. So this slide here is quite similar actually to the one that Paula presented at the end of her introduction. So I think it's really important to make contact with prospective supervisors as early as possible. So this can be done even before you've developed your research proposal, and your supervisors or your prospective supervisors can help you with this. If you're even unsure about the particular areas that you might want to link into, you can contact the faculty hub. So that's Paula's office, so the email address is there, or myself as the postgraduate research director, my email address is there. It's fine to arrange an informal meeting. We do that quite often. We have an informal discussion by Zoom or Skype, where you really just get a feel for the kind of things you want to do, why you want to do it, maybe talk through a few different ideas with you. And then maybe once you've settled on a particular area and hopefully a particular supervisor, you can then start developing your ideas together with your supervisor. And if you haven't done so already, submit a formal application through the Queen's portal. Okay, so that's really just a background in terms of how to put together a research proposal so far as we're concerned in the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Sciences. So if anyone does have any sort of specific questions or unsure how to approach that, we can answer that at the end of the session today or afterwards, by email. So next, I want to really give you a little bit of background in terms of what it's like to do research in the UK, because as I'm sure a lot of our international colleagues appreciate, research is quite different across the world. So in terms of a PhD, hopefully you know what a PhD is, but this is a little bit about the history for you. So sometimes you may be a bit confused by the title. I mean, a PhD actually stands for Doctor of Philosophy, and very few of us are actually doing a PhD in philosophy. But this is essentially a historical title, and what it means quite literally is a license to teach. So it used to mean that people would take a Doctor of Philosophy and they would be recognized to be of a sufficient standard and expertise to be able to teach students within their university. And so really this concept of a PhD stems from the need for academic staff or faculty members to demonstrate that they've got a level of authority in a particular subject, that they're in full command of a subject up to the boundaries of the current knowledge and able to extend those boundaries. So really it's viewed as the highest degree, and it proclaims that whoever's awarded the PhD is worthy of being viewed as an equal by other appropriate university staff. Okay, but if you look up the word Doctor of Philosophy in the dictionary at the moment, this is the definition that you get from the Collins English Dictionary. So in this day and age, a PhD is a degree which is awarded to people who've done advanced research into a particular subject. So I think it's really important to understand what a PhD or the purpose of a PhD is. It's not just about doing advanced research, it's doing training to become an independent researcher. And we take that really seriously at Queen's University Belfast. We do appreciate, though, this can have some challenges. I mean, it's quite difficult, I think, sometimes to go through this transition to PhD research. It's a different way of learning. It's a different way of processing new information. It's a different way of working as well to what a lot of us are kind of familiar with. It's also important to be very professional. So we would expect a lot of independence and professionalism from our own students. So it's really, as I'll keep mentioning, the responsibility for a PhD almost lies in the student themselves. So with the support, obviously, of the supervisors, but it's really down to the student to be professional, to keep commitments, to communicate, to take ownership of their project. And ultimately, although supervisors give you a lot of support, really it's down to the student, whether or not the student themselves, whether their PhD is a success, which we hope it is, and it is for most students, or a failure, which we hope doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen very often in our school. But it's really important to be able to have good communication skills, good time management skills. And one of the main things that we're trying to teach you as a PhD student is to become independent. So we're really trying to encourage you to develop your own ideas within your own research area. So you may have a project which we've either given to you or a project which you've developed yourself or together with us. But we would like to see you developing your own ideas within that general research area, and also to use this kind of knowledge and enthusiasm to really drive formation of your own professional networks, which will benefit you both as a student at Queen's, but then whenever you move on from Queen's and hopefully develop your own independent academic research career. We follow the UK Research and Development Framework, so that's a kind of a document or a process that's put in place to develop students from a kind of professional and career nature, and this includes development of transferable skills such as leadership, communication, teamwork, teaching, critical analysis, and we really encourage development of these skills, which can be quite difficult and new for people to pick up, but are just as important as being an expert in your own particular research area. So in terms of PhD in the UK, so Paul has already shown you this map. So this is where Belfast is in Northern Ireland, about an hour from London. The UK is a top destination for international PhD students. So approximately almost half of the postgraduate students, this is postgraduate research, so students doing PhDs and students doing taught master's degrees, are from outside Europe. One of the benefits, I think, of being a PhD student in the UK is that you're allowed to stay in the UK for at least 2 years after you graduate. So this allows you to carry on working after graduation. And I think it's really important to highlight the fact that UK PhD degrees, hopefully this is one of the reasons you're interested in coming to Queen's University Belfast, is they're recognised around the world. And Queen's University Belfast is a member of the Russell Group of UK universities, which is essentially the top 20 universities in the UK. So you've chosen one of the top universities to apply to. So how does a PhD differ in the UK versus other countries? So a PhD varies across the world in terms of the focus, in terms of the duration, in terms of how it's examined. So I've just done a kind of side-by-side comparison here between a PhD in the United Kingdom and a PhD in the United States. So in the United Kingdom, I talked about the fact that we try and teach you these transferable skills and try and develop these other important aspects, but primarily the PhD in the UK will be focused on research. Whereas if you go to the United States, you will start doing quite a lot of kind of taught courses for 1 or 2 years, and eventually you will kind of transfer towards a research degree. Consequently, the degrees are longer. So in the US, the average time is around 5 to 6 years for a PhD, whereas in the UK, the average time is between 3 and 4 years. So in the UK, you would tend to apply for a specific project, whether that's directly or whether that's developing a specific project with your prospective supervisor. But in the US, you would apply to a department, and eventually you would move into a PhD project after 2 or 3 years. In the United Kingdom, the PhD is managed at a school level. So in our school, I'm the director of postgraduate research, whereas in the United States, it's more managed at a university level through graduate programs. In the UK, most students would have a principal and second supervisor. Some students have a third supervisor, but in the US, they have more of a kind of committee structure, which would involve a principal supervisor, but also several other supervisors as well. The examination process, or the end examination process of your thesis and viva or dissertation and viva, largely the same. So you submit a thesis, as Paula said, 80,000 to 100,000 words, which sounds like a lot, but it's not really when you've done 3 or 4 years research. But in the US, they also have this coursework and examination component. So in the UK, we don't have exams for PhD apart from the oral examination at the end, which we call the viva voce examination. So this is really important. So the relationship between a PhD student and a supervisor is really important. And as I said, I mean, the responsibility is really upon the student, but the role of the supervisor is to guide and to mentor the student so they learn. And it's been proven that good supervision is the most important determinant of the success of a PhD. We need to recognize, though, that different students and different supervisors have different approaches. But what we do need to recognize, and what we always try and remember at Queen's, is this is a relationship between adults. So, you know, we don't try not to treat you like a student. We try and treat you like an equal. And we're quite open to discussing, you know, how things can work and what's the best way that this works for both the students and the supervisor. It's really important, I think, to agree ground rules at the start of the PhD And this is really important in terms to try and build trust, learn what's the best way to communicate between you and your supervisor. Define what the responsibilities are of yourself, but also of your supervisor. And just understand that academic supervisors do have competing priorities. So they're not just supervising one PhD student, and they're doing lots of other jobs apart from supervising PhD students. And it's also important to remember there's lots of other sources for advice and support. So you'll have not one supervisor, you'll have 2 or 3 academic supervisors. They'll more than likely be postdoctoral researchers within your laboratory, or if you're doing a non-laboratory based research, helping you in terms of maybe the computer-based or the literature-based aspects. We also have departmental or school PhD program directors, which can help you. But again, just to highlight that really it's the ultimate responsibility for the success of your PhD lies with the student, although the supervisor is there to try and give you a helping hand, to guide and to mentor you towards being an independent researcher. Okay, so now I'm really going to kind of move into specifically talking about the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Sciences. So hopefully this is something that you've either applied, either a school have you applied or will apply to. So in terms of basic background, so at Queen's University Belfast, this is a picture here of the Lanyon building. So Queen's University Belfast is quite an old university. It received its official charter from the Queen in 1849, but medicine has been taught at Queen's even before that time. So it'll be 200 years next year that medicine's been taught in Belfast. These are just a few statistics from our school. So within Queen's, I think there's 15 or 16 different schools within Queen's University Belfast. The School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Sciences is the largest of these schools. So we have lots of staff within the school. We have 2,500 students within the school. You can see there the last count, 276 postgraduate research students. A large proportion of these students, an increasing proportion of these students, are international students. We've got a lot of infrastructure investment. So in the last 10 years at Queen's, there's been well over £100 million invested in buildings and in staff and equipment. We've also got a lot of active research projects. We bring in a lot of grant income. So these are figures for 2017-18, but you can see there we applied for over £100 million in grant funding and brought in around £25 million in grant funding. So this is our general kind of research mission. So the research that we do, we want it to be impactful. And so we really aiming for our research to address key global healthcare challenges and to really understand mechanisms underlying disease in order that we can develop new therapies or interventions or management strategies for patients. And to do this, we need to establish relationships with major funders who provide short-term and longer-term, ideally, programmatic and capacity funding. And we've also got strong links in Belfast with local and sort of national built businesses, where we have collaborative programs, for example, with large pharmaceuticals, to develop programs which ultimately underpin this progression of discovery and translation towards improved clinical care. So this is just how our school fits into the faculty. So the Faculty of Medicine, Health and Life Sciences, as I say, has got 4 schools: Biological Sciences, Nursing and Midwifery and Pharmacy, and ourselves as Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Sciences. But as the largest school in the faculty and also within the university, we're sub-categorized into 3 education centres. So biomedical sciences education, dentistry and medical education, and 3 research centres: cancer research, experimental medicine and public health. And the four which are circled of those are the 4 centres in which we have active PhD research programmes. So this is really just a general summary of the kind of research programmes that we offer at master's and PhD level. So we have programmes in advanced radiotherapy, blood and tissue cancer, bioinformatics, cardiovascular medicine, epidemiology, genomics, immunobiology and microbes, ophthalmology, respiratory medicine, and medical education. So we've got quite a broad range of options in terms of postgraduate research. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take you through some of the research centres and really some of the more specific areas of research interest of the academic staff within those centres. So first of all, the Patrick G. Johnston Centre for Cancer Research. So as you can see here, I'll just read off the slide. PGJCCR is a cross-faculty interdisciplinary research centre with over 200 clinical and basic researchers from Northern Ireland and across the world. Its mission is to improve patient outcomes, train the next generation of scientists and clinicians, and enhance competitiveness of the UK life sciences sector. And so these are the particular strengths of the Patrick Johnston Centre for Cancer Research. So in terms of disciplinary strength, which kind of builds around translational science, but built on basic biology. So the centre is particularly interested in understanding drug resistance, in terms of understanding genomic instability, understanding the function of the tumour microenvironment, so things like the vascular supply, local inflammation, etc. Epidemiology, early detection, and they focus on lots of different cancers, but primarily the ones I've got listed there. So blood cancer, brain cancer, breast cancer, gastrointestinal cancer, genitourinary cancer, prostate cancer, and ovarian cancers. And to support this, they have several specialty technologies, enabling the centre to undertake translational and also, more importantly, I suppose, actual clinical research, which builds on these core strengths. So there's particular strengths in technologies underpinning advanced radiation, underpinning biomedical, bioinformatics and genomics, and also cancer therapeutics. And these technologies span across the different schools, so for instance into pharmacy, but also into the other centres across the school, which I'll highlight to you now. So this centre here is the Wellcome Wumps Institute for Experimental Medicine. This is the research centre in which my research group is based. So this centre was opened about 4 years ago. It costs £32 million. It's a sort of state-of-the-art research centre, as you can see there. It's multidisciplinary, multi-international, lots of research groups, but its main aim, its main mission is to really understand the mechanisms underlying disease and to use that knowledge to help inform innovative new treatments, therapies, and ultimately to improve patient outcomes, particularly in the areas of respiratory disease, eye disease, vascular disease, and infection disease. And so the ultimate aim is to understand the basic biology to be able to inform how we can better understand the patient through clinical trials and ultimately therapy. And we have lots of state-of-the-art technology within the centre. We've got various experimental or preclinical models of disease. We have particular expertise in cell reprogramming, in stem cell biology, in cell therapy, in immunobiology, infection biology, antimicrobial resistance. There's particular interest again in novel therapeutics and also biomarkers both to diagnose but also to predict effectiveness of drugs or risk and like outcome. And then we have various clinical trials at phase 1, 2, and 3, linking fundamental biology with the therapeutics in the clinic. And the 3 main research themes within our centre, as you can see there, immunology and microbes, respiratory medicine, and vision and vascular medicine. Then I move on to public health. So in the Centre of Excellence for Public Health, this again is a large centre based on the Royal Victoria Hospital site. There are 4 multidisciplinary research groups, which I'll highlight in the next slide. And the ultimate aim of the researchers in the Centre of Excellence for Public Health is to improve health along this concept of healthy aging, and to reduce inequalities, to try and prevent and manage chronic disease and disability, and also improve the delivery of health and social care. So I appreciate this slide's quite busy, but it really gives you a flavour of kind of research which is happening within the Centre for Public Health. They have a multidisciplinary grouping in epidemiology and public health. So there's lots of population-based research focused on big data and also small data and various population interventions. And one of the highlights of this particular grouping is the Nicholas study. So this is the Northern Ireland cohort of longitudinal aging, and this is a local cohort which has been used to track the epidemiology of various diseases. There's also a cancer epidemiology group which links into several of our researchers within the Patrick Johnston Centre for Cancer Research, focusing on pathology, epidemiology and pharmacoepidemiology. There's also a large nutrition research group, and these have links with the Institute of Global Food Security, which sits within the School of Biological Sciences. This is looking at behavioural changes, dietary interventions, dietary assessments of ways of improving nutrition and public health. And then finally, we have a health services research grouping, which has various interests. Some of the particular highlights are around mental health and around health economics. And also we have a large ophthalmology grouping looking at global eye health and eye care. And just finally, I just want to highlight, this is a small program we've got, but it's a nationally recognized program in medical education. So in medical education, we have particular interests in these areas which are listed there. So in medical education assessment, in humanities, in qualitative and quantitative methodologies in education research. We've got a large simulation centre within the Centre for Medical Education, where we look at simulation-based learning. We've got technology-enhanced learning, and we've got research in primary care as well. Okay, so just before I go on to our training program, I just really want to highlight in this one slide our master's program. So some of you may have already done masters, some of you may be doing masters already. Just to highlight that some of our PhD students will do a master's before. I know that Hayat, who's going to be joining us later as one of our previous graduates from Queen's, has an MSc, I think, in bioinformatics and computational genomics. So these are options that some students might want to take as a kind of pre-PhD year. So I'm just really going to finish off before the break, really just to take you through your first year of PhD study. So what can you expect within your first year of PhD study at Queen's University Belfast? So we're very lucky at Queen's University Belfast to have a fantastic graduate school. And in the background here, that's the graduate school. On the right-hand side, this is a picture of the inside of the graduate school. So it's a fantastic renovated building, which is open to all of the postgraduate students within the university. So within the first year, we run a relatively structured training program which runs alongside your PhD research. We start with a school welcome and induction event. Students who start in September, we run this on the first day of semester in September, although for a PhD, students can start any time of the year, depending on their funder and depending on their supervisors. So we then also run a second induction. We ran an induction last week for students who started between September and between April. There's also a graduate school induction. So the graduate school tell you a little bit really about what they do and what particular courses they run that are suited to students within our faculty. We also have an introduction to postgraduate research management. So we really sort of highlight the important aspects which we think are important in terms of thinking about how you might run and manage your postgraduate research. We also have a workshop on generic skills. So generic skills in communicating science. So we really teach you how to read, how to write, how to communicate in academic language, in scientific language, which is completely different to kind of standard English language. It's a real skill that you have to develop as an academic researcher. And then each year, which is one of the highlights of our academic year, we have a school postgraduate research forum, which is held at Riddle Hall, which is one of a really sort of nice location within Belfast. And all of our postgraduate research students, our first years, second years, third years, all go out to Riddle Hall. The second years present posters, the third years present short presentations on their research. And we also have a careers event at lunchtime and various networking opportunities. One of the emphasis of PhD, as I say, is about training as well as research. So we require students to undertake and to document 10 days of training per year. This, again, sounds like a lot. We would say this is 80 hours, but it's not very much at all when you think about all the different aspects of training. And I've listed some of them there. So some of the students would need to do mandatory training. So if you're doing a PhD in public health, for example, you may need to, or you may be required to take the medical statistics course and to pass the medical statistics exam as a critical component of your PhD. In the Wellcome Wolfson Institute, there's a mandatory presentation skills course. But as PhD students, we try not to make you do too much. We try and leave this up to you to decide what aspects of training are most suited to your own personal and professional development. We have lots of optional courses, so our PhD students will be able to sit in on a class-only basis on many of our master's lectures. So, for example, I would run the diabetes and cardiovascular medicine module, and we quite often have PhD students coming to sit in on some of those lectures and tutorial classes. Then there's a whole wealth of self-directed learning opportunities, so conferences, seminars. We run a peer mentoring program. I've already highlighted the graduate school, and then there's lots of other kind of research-specific training that students may avail of. One of the advantages, again, of being in the Faculty of Medicine and Health and Life Sciences, we have these fantastic core technology units, which were set up several years ago to sort of provide state-of-the-art technology for researchers in the faculty. And you can see the 6 core technology units which are listed there. We have advanced informatics, genomics, mass spectrometry, advanced imaging, biological services, and clinical research. And in the first year, we run an introduction to the core technology unit session where all of the academic leads from these facilities introduce their particular areas. And then what we do as a school is we will then fund each student to attend up to 2 of these units for a training session, which is paid for by the school. And then the hope is that you will then go back to these units and use these state-of-the-art technologies to support your research. Another fantastic sort of aspect of the faculty in the school is we have these 2 people here who have been appointed relatively recently. So firstly, we have Mr. Justin O'Hagan. And so Justin, his specific role is to provide English language support for postgraduate research students. And then we have Dr. Gillian Cruikshank, who is based within our school, and her role is to provide learning and development support for postgraduate students. So Justin will help students in terms of developing subject-specific English language. He'll help international students to learn how to read, write, develop speech and language. She'll provide proofreading skills. Gillian will particularly provide academic skills support. She'll help you in terms of how to manage your research, how to go about doing a literature review, how to do referencing, how to present both orally and through posters. And she'll also support students through our annual progress review and thesis writing and examination processes, which I'll talk to you about later on. So these two individuals, I think, are really important and a really great resource for the PhD students within our school. So just again, I know there's a lot of text in this slide, but really this is just to highlight the process that we use to, I suppose, assess but also support our students as PhDs. So when you do a PhD within the school, you're initially registered as undifferentiated. So you essentially undergo a kind of 9-month probationary period, and after this period, you have to submit a literature review. You have to populate a training record. You have to have done a presentation of your research within your research centre. You have to fill out an annual progress review report, and then you have a differentiation interview with a panel of academic staff. And the idea here really is just to make sure the students are progressing, they understand their research, they've taken a degree of ownership of their research, and most students will pass this first time. If they don't pass it first time, they will then be given specific support, comments, feedback, targets, and then interviewed again in 3 months' time, when hopefully they will pass. And I think a really important aspect in terms of the annual progress review process is this is a supportive process. We as academic staff want students to succeed, and we will do our best to ensure that they do. I think I've just got a few more final slides here. So firstly, just to highlight the management of postgraduate research within our school. So we sit within the faculty. So Professor Alan Stitt is the Dean of Impact Innovation. He chairs the Postgraduate Research Committee. I am the Director of Postgraduate Research within the school, and I chair the school Postgraduate Research Board. And these 4 individuals here are what we call our Associate Directors of Postgraduate Education and Training, and they essentially lead the postgraduate research programs within the different centres. And as a PhD student, you will be based in one of these 4 centres. This is our postgraduate research handbook, and we give all new students this handbook, and this highlights, our responsibilities to you as a postgraduate research student, the responsibilities of you as a postgraduate student to us. It details things like attendance, working hours, withdrawal, holidays, maternity leave, etc., and also all of the annual progress review procedures that I've highlighted to you, and the other mandatory parts, including regular formal supervisory meetings. We also have a SharePoint site, which is full of really useful information for students. We have information around seminars, around presentations, around an annual progress review. We have all the minutes from our postgraduate research board. We also have links to our student representatives, which is a really important way that our students can communicate with the academics and with the school. And we have various other supports around mental health, etc. And just finally, hopefully at the end of your PhD, you will have achieved most, if not all, of these things. So the aim of your PhD is hopefully to become a kind of full kind of card-carrying academic scientist. You will have acquired cutting-edge, state-of-the-art research skills. You will have also acquired or developed your communication skills, so you would be able to communicate to your peers with confidence. You should have developed professional networks both within and out with the university. And I think the really important thing is you will be an expert, or you will be the expert in your specific research area. You'll have developed transferable skills. You'll learn how to read, to write, to communicate, to critically appraise research. And we would expect most of our students, if not all of our students, to publish their research either during or after their PhD. You'll also receive academic mentorship, from your supervisor, and you'll defend a high quality PhD thesis, and you will leave Queen's University Belfast as being a graduate of one of the top universities in the UK. Okay, so I appreciate there's a lot I've gone through a lot there, and so I'll leave it there because we're going to have a short break now, and then I think after the break we'll come back and we'll be able to answer any of your questions.
The world is changing at an unprecedented pace. Every industry is embracing change, drawing on a new wealth of insights and tools to advance in today's connected society. At Queen's University, we have a bold ambition to lead the way in the challenges we see ahead. Every day, we touch thousands of lives in our pursuit of excellence. Finding solutions to real-world issues and inspiring research to have real-world impact. We are protecting the cybersecurity of billions of internet users. We are at the forefront of conflict resolution, making a difference to the lives of children, families, and communities across the world. We are working with industry to develop new technologies. We are creating access to safe, nutritious food for a growing population. And we're at the forefront of major medical breakthroughs, making a real impact on people's lives. We give amazing minds a place to do amazing things in a university fit for the 21st century. We are the heartbeat of one of Europe's fastest growing cities, in a country where the hospitality, welcome, and warmth of our people is legendary. Together, we are meeting the challenges of our time head on, developing our students to be the leaders of tomorrow with the confidence and innovation to engage in an ever-evolving global culture. Together, we are shaping a better world.
I'm Jinan. I come from China. I'm now the final year PhD student of School of Medicine. I'm doing some GL analysis with patients who have diabetic kidney disease. It takes years to make the kidney damage, but once it's happened, it's very serious. So if we can find a biomarker to do the early detection of the diabetic kidney disease, it may help more people. And my supervisor is Dr. Gareth McKay. He's very friendly. He always gives me very quick feedback if I hand in some paper, hand in some results. Before I came here, I know nobody from here, and I was allocated in the Elms Village. I need to share the living room, the kitchen with another two girls. They are the Irish girls. They are very friendly. They show me where is the city center and where is the good supermarket. At that time is the Christmas market in the city hall. So they invite me to join them and to explore the city. There are so many things around Belfast City. For the whole year, there are quite a lot of events. They're full of people, they're full of performance. Also have been to the North Coast, the Giant Causeway. It's very beautiful. I would definitely recommend Queen's University to other people. I have got quite a lot of training from the graduate school, like the presentation skills, like how to do the negotiation with others. And also Queen's provide me quite a lot of opportunity. So I'm confident for my future.
The Precision Medicine Centre of Excellence at Queen's University Belfast has been designed to work with industry, with clinical trials and with programmatic research to improve the quality and the quantity of the UK's biotech industry product, with a significant potential impact in the national economy, and by doing so, also allowing the patients of our NHS to live longer lives and better lives.
The technological advances in genomics have transformed the way in which we can interrogate tumor samples, from massively parallel sequencing to liquid biopsies and single-cell analysis. We can generate the same amount of genomic data in a day that would have taken many months only a few years ago. Our Precision Medicine Centre aims to speed up the transformation of the excellent genomic research carried out in academia and industry into the best possible clinical care for individual patients in our healthcare systems.
The Tissue Hybridisation and Digital Pathology section of the Precision Medicine Centre uses single and multiplex wet lab technologies with state-of-the-art digital pathology approaches and artificial intelligence to drive forward high-throughput solutions for the analysis of patient samples. A high-quality learning environment will also be developed in the centre to support innovation and best practice in learning, teaching and training. The successful Northern Ireland Biobank, which underpins translational research in Northern Ireland, will be a cornerstone of support for the activities across the Precision Medicine Centre by facilitating access to high-quality, well-annotated patient samples.
The area of bioinformatics has now become a major driver in interpreting data into actionable insights. Driving such discoveries, we aim to enable them to accelerate discovery of routes to optimal clinical care, underpinned by our drive for personalised medicine.
The Precision Medicine Centre at Queen's University Belfast is able to do this successfully and proving that we can improve the life of our patients.
Hi again, everyone. Thank you very much for bearing with us during the break, and we played some videos in the meantime. So I'm just going to pick up again regarding next steps before we come to the questions. And just before I do that, I want to mention that Hayat has very kindly typed in the chat box, "Hello Hayat, and thank you for joining us today." Hayat is one of our current students. She's studying a master's in bioinformatics and computational genomics. But she is also one of our student ambassadors, and she's happy to answer any questions from a student's perspective about studying at Queen's. And Hayat has kindly left her email address there, so you can either send her a message via chat or you can drop her an email at any time. So if you've already applied, and you're kind of either at the stage where you're waiting on an offer, or you might have already gotten an offer, you can go on to the direct applications portal and accept your offer. If you're a student who has applied through an agent, and I know there are a number of students here today who have come to us via Abraham and UK Uni agents, and thank you very much for that. But if you have an agent, please contact UK Uni and please ask them for an update on your application, because if they're the point of contact on your application, they will have the latest up-to-date information that is available on your application. For anyone who hasn't yet applied, we are accepting applications for next year. So this is open, and as I mentioned earlier, that you can do this online via our direct applications portal. And I suppose it's a very simple process, but if you need any further information on that, there's lots of videos and help on our website, which is qub.ac.uk, or alternatively, you can email us. Our email address is at the bottom here, which is askmhls@qub.ac.uk. And just before I move on to the questions, I wanted to touch on, first of all, entry requirements, and secondly, the fees for the programme, because apologies, it should have been in one of my previous slides, but it's just to let you know, for any international students, the fees are £21,300 per year. However, we do offer a number of scholarships and discounts, and we can give you more information on these. These are things like the early bird reward. So if you're able to pay a deposit before the 30th of June and provide all of your academic criteria before this date, that entitles you to a further 10% discount. We have something called our International Office Scholarship, which is a value of around £3,000 as well. So there's some different options available, but as I said, our email address is there, askmhls@qub.ac.uk, and we can break this down further for you. I know some people have asked a question about entry requirements and about English language tests. The entry requirements to study a postgraduate research degree in the school, we accept 2-1 qualifications, and that's if you've studied in the UK, or the equivalent qualification in your own country. So it's a 2-1, so a second upper class degree. For any international students, we also require English language certificates, and that's an IELTS score of 6.0 with no less than 5.5 in any of the components. So thanks for bearing with us through the presentations. Hopefully now you've got a chance to really understand a lot more about Queen's and about studying PhD here. But what I'm going to do now is read through some of the questions, and David's here with me, so he will, between myself and him, we will try our best to answer the questions. Okay, so the first question we have, let me just get along the questions here. So thank you for everyone who's typed in the question so far. So Huda has said, I found the slides, there was no toxicology department or section. David, is this something that we potentially would offer as an area?
Off the top of my head, I don't think so. But I mean, we can always, there may be people who have a toxicology component to some of their research programs. There could well be people in other schools. So for instance, within, I don't know, the School of Chemistry or the School of Pharmacy. So I think the link that Paula highlighted early on, and I did several times in terms of the Find a PhD supervisors, we don't have a kind of specific toxicology department, but we have over 100 academic staff in our school and lots more academic staff outside of our school. So I think the thing, for all of you really who are interested in specific aspects of research which may not be obvious from our general kind of research strategy and focus, is have a look on the Find a PhD, and you can even, I think, on the course finder, Paul, you can search, can you, under keywords, so you could do a search on the different terms such as toxicology, and it will bring up any supervisors or projects which are available in that area.
Yeah, and I have just posted the link in the chat box there directly to the Find a PhD supervisor page. So if you click on that link, and that will bring you through to our website, and you can search there, as David has alluded to. Lena has asked, can you suggest names of professors who work in collaboration with pharmacy school in medicinal and organic chemistry? Again, I suppose that's something that you would need to have a search for. We have many, many academics working in many areas. And if you go onto the website and type in kind of organic chemistry or medicinal chemistry, those areas will come up and the researchers associated with those areas, unless, David, you need to add anything to that.
Well, just again, off the top of my head, I mean, we do have people, for example, doing oncology and drug discovery. So that's a kind of natural link between sort of, you know, chemistry and medicinal chemistry and pharmacy. So yeah, there's certainly lots of opportunities. And, you know, I think the thing to do is contact one of the academics directly. And if you're particularly interested, like we said, I think within our talks, of doing a PhD, which is multidisciplinary or cross-disciplinary, which we would certainly encourage, then, you know, we can certainly talk to our colleagues in the relevant schools and centres. I mean, from my point of view as well, just my own experience, I say I do several projects with people. I'm in the Centre for Experimental Medicine, but I work with academic staff in the Centre for Cancer Research. I work with staff in the School of Pharmacy, the School of Biological Sciences, and a lot of those projects are joint PhD projects. So yeah, we're more than willing to discuss any sort of possibilities and to also investigate any specific interests like the one that Lena's just mentioned there. Yeah, great. So yes, Lena, here's another question. Are the professors who would be interested in working with students at split site PhD, or some might call it channel? Yes, as David has just said, that would be the kind of the joint PhD study that we're talking about. So again, if you want to get in contact with us afterwards via email, we would have to specifically look at what you want to study and how we could accommodate that. So does that question, I don't know, does that question relate to working in distant areas in Queen's, or it may even relate to working across different universities?
I'm not sure. Split site. Lena, if you want to clarify, do you mean?
But again, if it was between different universities, we can do that. Obviously, if it's, we have quite a lot of Queen's students who are registered for a Queen's degree, but are either working primarily or jointly with other universities in different countries, including in the Middle East. So that is an option. We don't have too many options in terms of exact what we would call split site PhDs, which are where the student gets a degree from each institution. That's a little bit more complicated, but we're certainly willing to look at and actually encourage students, you know, working with different institutions as part of their Queen's degree.
Thank you. So Rasha has said, my subject is early childhood education. I'm not sure, Rasha, perhaps unless it's in the field of medicine in relation to childhood education, I'm not sure. But again, if you email us with further detail on what you mean there, of what your subject area would include, we'll look into that for you, because perhaps if it's not within the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Science, it might be within one of the other schools at Queen's. And apologies for pronunciation of the names here. Mansour for dental. So again, if you could let us know a little bit more about what subject area that you're interested in, what you're currently studying, we can come back to you on that.
We don't, I mean, just to say, in terms of dental research, we don't do clinical dental research as such. We have a very large centre for dental education, but in terms of clinical dental research, we don't do that. But we do have several principal investigators who are doing sort of, you know, laboratory-based dental research, which may be of interest. Because I think I noticed maybe one or two other questions. There was one there around orthodontics. And again, I'm not certain if that's something that we do, but I think for these particular individuals that are interested in dentistry, it still might be worth, you know, having an informal discussion by email or via Skype with one of our principal investigators from a dental background to see if there's anything that might interest you within their kind of research areas.
Great. Lena has asked, does optional or mandatory classes include exams and evaluation?
So the ones that I highlighted, the only mandatory course which has an examination is the medical statistics course. So this is for students primarily in the Centre for Public Health, but also some students in other research centres whose basically PhD has a central statistics component. So so the students need to take the exam and pass the exam if statistics is a core component of the PhD, but that is the only examinations aspect of the mandatory course component for a PhD.
Great. Shafa has written, could you elaborate on the slide concerning the methodology section of the research proposal? Do materials and methods have to be included from the beginning?
Yeah, so I think they also asked another question around the research proposal. So I suppose the research proposal, it's what I presented is not necessarily the exact structure it needs to be. What I was trying to get across is really this is the kind of thing, and it may be that you can't or are not in a position to cover all of the aspects. Okay, I think really what I was trying to get across is that what we would like in our school ideally is just like a page or two that really summarizes the kind of research that you're interested in, why you want to do it. One of the questions they had as well was around motivation, and talking about whether that should be included in the personal statement. You could include it in both. I mean, I think there's a personal statement section on the direct application portal. So in terms of the question about methodology, which was the one that you just read out, Paula. So yeah, okay. I suppose, I mean, some students might have a clear idea in terms of the methods that they want to use. Some students might just think that this is a particular area of research that I'm interested in. This is the kind of research that I want to do, but you might not actually know exactly what methods are available. So don't worry about that too much, so long as you've maybe given it some thought in terms of the kind of methods you might be interested in learning. So particularly some international funders would require their students to learn particular techniques. So if there's a particular research technique you want to link into your proposal, that's great. But don't worry if there's a particular aspect of the research proposal there that you think you can't complete. Don't worry about it. Just as long as we've got a general overview of the kind of things you want to do. And so the actual proposal can be developed with your prospective supervisor once you've made informal contact with them.
Great, thanks. Rena had asked about the orthodontic PhD, but I think Rena and David has covered that at this stage. Lena has asked, does acceptance letter specify admission to a full-time PhD program and the field where you would study? So yes, the admission, we can provide you with an admissions letter. I suppose you may be talking to in relation to sponsorship or having to provide a sponsor letter. But yes, we can specify that it will be a full-time PhD, and we can also specify the area of study in your offer letter as well, so that you would have that.
Yeah, I mean, just the undifferentiated aspect that you've mentioned in that comment there, I mean, that is really just a term that we use within the university for students in first year. But in reality, what happens is students have an annual progress review every year. It's just in year one we call it differentiation. But as Paula says, you're admitted to a full-time PhD and you have an annual progress review interview, which in first year we call differentiation. If you don't pass that, we give you support to hopefully allow you to pass that next time. And very, very few students do not get through their annual progress review, mostly first time, but some second time with support. And the idea of the support is that it highlights issues. So when you actually do get to the end of your PhD, that you're fully prepared for your thesis and viva, and there's not issues that come to light too late. Okay, so yes, you're all admitted to a full-time PhD.
Great. We've had a private message come through, which someone has completed their master's in immunology and in public health, and the major was reproductive and child health. So how could you suggest names of professors who work in cancer biology, infection and immunity, cancer epidemiology? Is it possible that you have any scholarships? Well, the scholarship part I kind of chatted about at the end. when you get the presentation, I'll add in the scholarship slide so that you have, before I send out the presentation to everyone, so that you have a full view of all of our scholarships. But perhaps David could advise on the first part of that question.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in the short answer is yes. So we have plenty of academic staff in those areas. Immunology, they would be primarily within the Centre for Experimental Medicine, but also within cancer. Public health, yes, I'm pretty sure we have people interested in reproductive and child health within the Centre for Public Health. Cancer biology, infection, immunity, cancer epidemiology, you've kind of hit all the key words from kind of, our research centres. So rather than, I could name lots of names, but I think the best thing would be for you to kind of review our Find a PhD supervisor list and look for yourself, because obviously they're quite broad terms you've used there. But I think it's in, when students come to us, it's best if they maybe highlight 2 or 3 particular academic staff they're interested in working with, not highlighting too many. So maybe within those areas, really sort of decide which of the particular aspects you're maybe most interested in, and which from their profiles would be the academic staff you would be most interested in working with, and then we can put them in contact with you. Okay. Great.
Amal has asked, what is a viva?
A viva is I think viva voce is Latin, which basically I think means something like live voice. Okay, so a viva, it means essentially an oral examination. Okay, so what as a viva, that's at the end of your PhD, you submit your PhD thesis, and then the viva will be, typically you have an external examiner who is from outside of Queen's University Belfast, normally from another university in the UK, sometimes from outside UK, and you have an internal examiner who is one of the academic staff from within Queen's University Belfast. You also have a chairperson in there who really just sits there and doesn't really contribute to the viva, just really sort of make sure that everything progresses in line with Queen's University Belfast regulations. So typically a PhD viva oral examination would normally last somewhere between 2 and 3 hours, but it's really a discussion of your research at the end of your PhD, and that's one of the purposes of annual progress review, is really to help you prepare for your PhD examination or PhD viva at the end of your PhD.
Great. Tala has asked, how can a GMC registered doctor working as a Foundation Year 2 doctor or SHO equivalent pursue a parallel career in genomics research?
So I presume that Tala is registered within the UK. If you're registered within the UK, I think the best thing to do is probably, again, to contact potential supervisors directly. We have various programs called Academic Clinical Fellow and Academic Clinical Lecturer programs, which are kind of obviously a little bit more advanced, but the Academic Clinical Fellow program is something which GMC registered doctors would apply to, and it's almost like a pre-PhD. So you would spend 2 years part-time working together with a clinical academic to develop a research proposal for a kind of clinical PhD. So I think that's definitely possible, but I think it's something that should be discussed directly with a clinical. It doesn't have to be clinical, but typically it's a clinical supervisor. Okay, so I think that, but again, if you have any more specific questions in how to approach that, you can email me directly.
Okay, Faisal has asked, my IELTS are too low, but I can't reset the IELTS at the minute. Can you help with this? Well, yes, actually we can. We would have 2 options now at the minute, and given the current circumstances where a lot of test centres have closed, Queen's has developed an online English test. So depending on what level of English you currently have, you may be eligible to take this test. The other option is pre-sessional English test, pre-sessional English course, which we run alongside our partner Into. That would usually take place during the summer, but Into, given the current circumstances, again, have also developed a new online pre-sessional English test. So depending on what level of your IELTS are, you could take either one of those online tests in order to for entry into Queen's. What I will do is I'll post the links to the online tests at the end in the chat box. I'll have a look for the links here and I'll post them in there. But in the meantime, if you want to contact us and send us through your current English language level, we will assess that for you and we'll come back and let you know.
I think there was one question you missed there, Paula, I think.
Okay, sorry.
Around talk courses. So someone asked, Shatha asked, is it possible to take talk courses along with the PhD research project as an integrated program? So I suppose the best way to do that would be to do a master's degree. So you do what we call a 1+3 program, which is where you basically select one of those masters that I highlighted on one of my slides, and you do that master's program for 1 year. Before your PhD, and during which time you can develop your PhD proposal, which can actually be linked to your master's research project. The other way of doing it, which you will not get formal recognition for, would be just to sit in on the classes. I know a lot of international funders like their students take talk classes, and we're quite happy for you to sit in on a class-only basis, so not to take the exams, but to sit in on a class-only basis on any relevant lectures. So it depends really whether you actually want an additional master's qualification, or if you just want to have this additional kind of learning together with your research-based PhD. Okay.
Great. So we have a couple more questions. During 2-year post-study work, can I get PR? I'm not entirely sure. If you want to send us more information on what you mean there, we could look into that. We have I have a question about acceptances nursing in split sit program. Again, perhaps we need a bit more detail on that one. If you could send that through, that would be great.
Yeah, again, most of the nursing would be done from the School of Nursing and Midwifery, but we do have some nurse-based research within our school. But again, as Paula says, we probably need a bit more information.
Now we have something. I studied microbiology of dairy. Can I apply for the public health department?
That sounds to me like that's more of something that might be more in line with the Institute for Global Food Security, which is part of the School of Biological Sciences, which is part of our faculty, but it's run through a different school, or potentially, microbiology. I think there's some microbiology maybe within the Centre for Experimental Medicine, but it sounds to me, particularly dairy, they do a lot of that kind of work in the Institute for Global Food Security, so we can certainly put you in contact with the relevant individuals in that school.
Exactly, Amal, and we do offer kind of programs in the area of microbiology, and particularly in dairy and agriculture and that sort of area. So it might not be particularly relevant for public health, but there probably is somewhere else in the university that would fit in with. So if you contact us with your area of interest, we will come back. Suvish has a question about cognitive neuroscience. I have an innovative idea to use my strengths to detect dementia prior to the onset of cognitive decline. Would you please help me to correlate my strengths with cognitive tutors, probably using fMRI or other parameters?
I think I've already been in contact with Suvish by email. So I think I explained within that, obviously Suvish there has a kind of very specific project which don't directly fit with any of our kind of ongoing programs, although I think highlight a couple of areas which he may be able to link into. So I think I recommended there that Suvish contacted the relevant supervisor directly, or either through myself, to maybe discuss how those particular aspects may be, because we do have people who are interested in dementia and cognitive decline, but we don't really have anyone interested in those particular technologies, but then it may be that, Suvish, you could bring your expertise, if you have expertise in those particular technologies, to complement our ongoing research. So I think that question, you need to either come back to me, or you need to contact the academic staff in those particular areas. I think I direct you to the Find a PhD Supervisor list. Okay, so I think it's better to have a kind of direct discussion with them.
Another question from Suvish, just to say that they have an undergraduate medical degree. Can I apply directly for a PhD without a master's? And yes, essentially the answer
Yes.
is yes to that. Lena has clarified. Thanks, Lena, for clarifying that you were referring to working between two universities. In this case, King Abdulaziz University in Saudi and Queen's.
I think that's something, Lena, that we can, sort of look at, but it's quite complicated because it needs obviously drawing up of particular kind of partnership agreement. It's not something that's something that we could do if it's something that was worthwhile for both parties. But certainly, I think that's something, if you're interested in that particular sort of arrangement, something we need to have a separate discussion about.
Yeah, and thank you. Ibrahim has just clarified some of the details around that. That you would have a local supervisor and one at Queen's. That's great, thank you. Do you have healthcare management?
We don't, but the School of Management does. So I think Paula could put you in contact with the relevant people in our school, Queen's School of Management. Yeah. Although again, that could link, I think, to possibly people within the Centre for Public Health, but I think it would be primarily led by the School of Management.
Yeah, and as David had said, if you just drop us an email with a bit more detail on your research in healthcare management, we can direct you into the right place to make sure you're speaking to the right person. Suvish and emailed you previous study, and it's.
I thought I replied, but I can follow that up. I think I left it with one of my colleagues, but I can certainly follow that up.
Great. Okay, Suvish, if you've had trouble, I suppose, getting in contact with anyone, please let either myself or David know via email, and we will kind of make sure whoever you've been in contact with, gets back to you. Obviously, it's important that they respond to you as quickly as they can. So, again, if you let myself and David know, that you've contacted some of the supervisors via the Find a Supervisor page, and they haven't responded, let us know, and we'll follow that up for you.
I think it's okay to remind us, but sometimes it can. We try and deal with applications very quickly, but sometimes there's more complicated discussions going on, and people might be discussing with their colleagues if they can find a particular area of interest. So if you haven't heard from us, don't necessarily think we're not doing anything about your application. By all means, keep reminding us.
Great. So I think that's all the questions, unless anyone has anything else to add. Kindly provide UK. Yes, Ibrahim in UK Uni has my email address and will be able to send this on. And thank you very much to UK Uni for helping to facilitate this webinar today. Thanks very much to David for coming on and taking us through everything. And thanks to all of you who participated and asked questions. Hopefully you found the session very useful. But again, if you have any further questions, we will provide, we're happy to answer these via email if that's easiest. And as I said, the webinar was recorded today, so we will email you out afterwards the link to the recording and also the presentation slides as well. But thanks again, everyone, and hopefully we would look forward to welcoming you to Belfast in the not so distant future.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.